Let's use the low fuel indicator to help add fuel stops. We've already opened up the trip we want, we've got a few campgrounds added, and we are looking at our map view. We might decide to turn off the driving radius and toggle off campgrounds at this point to make our map a little less busy. Because we've chosen to see multiple fuel warnings, we can see that we're going to need at least these 3 fuel stops between our starting point and our final campground. Or, if we change the setting to show us only 1 fuel warning, the indicator icon will show up only the first time our fuel level goes down to the reserve amount. In this case, this icon should display when we are down to 4 gallons of fuel, assuming we left with a full tank. Then, once we enter in a fill-up, RV Trip Wizard will move the indicator icon to the next point we need to refuel. We can see that the first low fuel indicator icon is shortly after our first campground in Tulsa. The placement of the icon allows you to anticipate your refueling needs and plan ahead. We know that right here we will have about 4 gallons left before the tank is empty. We could plan to fill up just after leaving the first campground by going to a gas station. Let's look for one nearby. Zoom in on the area surrounding the low fuel indicator and then open up the research drawer. Click on the Points of Interest tab and then select Fuel to see all the fuel stop options in the map area. If you want to filter the results even further and only see certain fuel stations such as Love's or Pilot, click to deselect miscellaneous gas stations. Now we can see this Flying J is right along our route. Click on the pin icon for the fuel stop in the map and then click Add to Trip. We'll add it after the first campground stop. Now we can see that the Flying J fuel stop has been added to our itinerary. This next step is important. We need to let RV Trip Wizard know that we plan to fill up our tank here. To do this, click on or hover over the Flying J in the itinerary and select Edit, the pencil icon, from the pop-up that appears on the right. The Edit Trip window will appear. We can see several calculations RV Trip Wizard makes about potential fuel usage here, based on miles between stops and your fuel settings. To let RV Trip Wizard know that you plan to refuel here, go to the Fuel Added section. Click the top-off checkbox to tell RV Trip Wizard that you'll be leaving this stop with a full tank. You also have the option to manually enter in a number for gallons of fuel you will add here, though generally we recommend using the top-off checkbox option. Click Save. Back in the map view, we can see that the fuel indicator has now moved just beyond the next trip stop around Kansas City. You can repeat this process to continue planning out your fuel stops wherever the low fuel indicator shows that you'll be running low on fuel along your journey. You can add more new fuel stops to your trip, or you can also indicate a fuel fill at an existing stop. For example, if we look closer at this next low fuel indicator icon, we see that it appears just after our Kansas City campground, where we know we plan to stay for multiple days and could also plan to fill up our tank at some point during that time. Click on or hover over the stop in the itinerary and click the pencil icon to bring up the Edit Trip window. We can see that we will be leaving our previous stop, the Pilot gas station, with a full tank of 24 gallons. And RV Trip Wizard calculates that we will need to use around 19.17 gallons to get to this campground stop, which should leave us with around 4.83 gallons of fuel on arrival. Once again, click the top-off checkbox to let RV Trip Wizard know that you plan to fill up your tank at this stop. Click Save. Now that we are leaving our Kansas City stop with a full tank, we can see back on the map that our third fuel stop will need to be somewhere between our last 2 campgrounds. Continue adding new fuel stops or topping off fuel at existing stops as shown previously. Once we let RV Trip Wizard know that we plan to top off fuel at our Omaha campground, we can see that the last low fuel indicator icon has been removed from the map. When it comes time for your trip and you're traveling along your itinerary, you may happen to fill up while at a campground or some other unplanned fuel location along the way. We recommend topping off at your planned fuel stop anyway, to keep subsequent fuel stops in your itinerary on track. RV Trip Wizard will give you a rough estimate of fuel costs as you add stops to your trip. It will take the average cost per gallon from your settings and multiply this by the amount of gallons in the fuel used field at each stop in your itinerary. Here's a campground from our trip where we've already chosen to top off, refilling the 14.37 gallons of fuel used since the last stop, where we also refueled. At the default fuel cost of $3.50, this comes out to around $50, which is shown in the fuel costs field here. If you want to change the fuel cost per gallon for this specific fuel stop to be different from your default value, you can change that field here as well, and the estimated fuel cost will be recalculated for you. Note that this cost calculation is done at every stop in your itinerary, regardless of designating it as a fuel top-off, and that the costs are based only on fuel used and not on fuel added. In this example, we've left the Dallas area and driven all the way to Tulsa. Note that there is a calculated fuel cost listed here, even though you may not be planning to fill up and purchase fuel at this particular stop. This is because RV Trip Wizard is still estimating how much fuel would cost in order to travel the miles for this leg of the journey. Meanwhile, when we drive just a few miles down the road to the gas station and do top off our tank, the fuel cost here is only calculated based on the small amount of fuel used since the last stop. Because RV Trip Wizard is a planning tool, these features are here to help you simply estimate expenses and give you a rough idea of costs as you design your itinerary.